Ladies and gentlemen,
today we are going to begin our study of the male erection. We are adults. And
Boner?
boner is good. Now, I want everybody together to go ahead and say, penis, 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 vagina, vagina, vagina.
come on, y'all, say it.
Penis, 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 vagina, vagina, vagina.
Well, good, great.
Now, I think it's also very important that we discuss slang terms for different sex organs. What are a few of the slang expressions for the male erection we want to identify? Boner is good.
Mr. Moxon, will you share with us?
The male erection? Pitching a tent, sporting wood, bicycles formed, marches on.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Stiffy, Mr. Mortis. Rigor mortis is set in.
Flesh Rocket, Jack's Magic Beanstalk, Tall Tommy, Mushroom on a Stick, Mr. Mushroom Head, Purple-Headed Yogurt Slinger, and Pedro.
Pedro?
During your sex education classes, what are the things that you go over?
Planned Parenthood does what's called comprehensive sex education. So it is very dependent upon what age group we're working with. All of our curricula are posted on our website, so you can certainly do more research on the individual curricula. But because we are a comprehensive sex education provider, for those programs with the older youth, like high school aged youth, we talk with them about everything. So we start the conversation with the fact that abstinence is the only 100% guaranteed way to ensure that you won't get an STD or face an unintended pregnancy. But we also talk about the fact that there are lots of options for birth control and how to use a condom, how to protect yourself from STDs. So all of those topics are covered in those discussions. When we're working with middle school aged youth, the conversations are much more about what is a healthy relationship, how to say no, what are those refusal skills, so that individuals are prepared to make decisions for themselves when they are ready to be sexually active.
How effective do you think these sex education classes are to the students?
Comprehensive sex education has been shown in study after study to delay the onset of sexual activity, reduce the number of partners that an individual has, as well as decrease the incidence of unintended pregnancy and STDs. So we think they're very successful.
Okay. Are you able to talk about the process you go through with a teen if they want to have an abortion, and how y'all go about that?
Sure. The process is the same for anyone who comes into our health centers. However, if you are a minor, there is an extra step within the state of Colorado. The law in the state of Colorado requires parental notification for minors, which means no matter what the scenario, with very few exceptions, if you are a minor seeking an abortion in our health centers, your parent must be notified. The only way to get around that is what's called a judicial bypass, which allows for the individual to make their case in front of a judge, and the judge can determine if the minor's safety is at risk if their parent is in fact notified that they're seeking an abortion. But for everyone who comes in our health centers, the process begins with regular medical intake. We need to know what your medical background is, just like when you go to a regular doctor's office, so that we can make proper medical decisions. Next is what we call an informed consent session. That begins with all options counseling. All Planned Parenthood health centers are all options counseling facilities, which means that regardless of whether the woman walks in our doors 100% positive that she doesn't want to be pregnant, or if she's maybe unsure about her decision, we're going to talk to her about all three options. So we're talking about parenting, we're talking about adoption, and we're talking about abortion. Included in the informed consent session is a series of questions for us to determine if the individual is making that decision on her own. We want to make sure that she isn't being coerced into seeking an abortion, because we don't believe any woman should be faced with that decision, and we're not going to force anyone to get an abortion. That decision has to be something that she makes on her own. From there, there's the question of how far along they are in the pregnancy, which determines whether or not the abortion pill is an option, or if surgical abortion is the appropriate medical procedure to follow up with. And then depending on those two, the next steps are slightly different.
So when you're going through the process with the three options that you give them, how often does the teen say, no, I don't want to abort it, I want to...
You know, we don't actually release that information,
Okay.
But we also don't break down that information into age groups. So I couldn't even tell you how that information breaks down.
If you give them advice, what are like just some advice you give someone that is going through this process with abortion?
You know, all of the information that we provide is medically accurate. Because we think it's important to provide all of the information that's necessary for an individual to make the decision for themselves. It's not appropriate for me to give advice, because any advice I would give might not be appropriate for their individual situation. So what we do is we provide all of the information that's appropriate for them so that they can make the decision for themselves.
Do you ever see girls come back more than once or twice?
You know, we have patients who do seek abortion more than once. However, we do have conversations with them about effective forms of contraception, so that if they don't want to be pregnant, that they can protect themselves from those unintended pregnancies.
Okay, that's all.
But that's not an age-restricted thing. That's a conversation we have with women, with every single woman that comes into our doors seeking an abortion. Following the procedure, the next conversation is, what method of birth control are you on?
Okay.
Do you think that the media has any type of effect on younger children on getting like 16, like for instance 16th and pregnant?
You know, that's I don't think that's for me to say whether or not it has an impact, since I'm not a teenager. I don't know how those shows impact teenagers. But I will say that there have been several articles written about the impact of shows such as 16 and Pregnant and Teen Mom on MTV and the impact that they have. And more often than not, they say that these shows are positive in the fact that they highlight how there's a bill in the state legislature right now. It's waiting for the governor's signature. It's called House Bill 1081 for comprehensive sex education in public schools within the state of Colorado. It provides definitions for what comprehensive sex education is, as well as incentives for public school districts to implement comprehensive sex education in their districts. As the law stands today, schools are not required to provide sex education, but if they do, it's expected that they provide comprehensive sex ed. However, the way the law is written, it's unclear what is meant by comprehensive, so many school districts are working around the law and providing abstinence only until marriage programs instead of comprehensive sex ed. So youth aren't getting the information that they need in order to protect themselves from unintended pregnancy and STDs. So House Bill 1081, once it's signed by the governor, which will hopefully happen in the next couple of weeks, will go into effect within the next school year. And it will provide school districts with an incentive to implement a comprehensive sex education program in their schools.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, I did some research on that. There were some articles talking about censorship, and so I think they were teaching more like abstinence until marriage. And so that limits them to knowing like what they would do in a situation if they like actually got into like a sexual situation, and how they would go about that, because the programs that they're teaching was just about how not to have sex.
Exactly. So abstinence only until marriage programs are, they don't provide all of the information that youth need, because we know that eventually the overwhelming majority of the population will have sex at some point in their lives. So they may not be ready to be sexually active when they're teenagers, but eventually they will find themselves, hopefully, in a relationship where they feel comfortable having sex with someone. And it's important that those individuals are prepared for when that relationship happens to protect themselves against unintended pregnancy as well as STDs. This is even relevant for those who have decided that they want to be abstinent until they get married. Because even once they're married, they may not be ready to have a child right away. And they need to know how to maintain their sexual health so that if and when they are ready to have a child, that their health is in a position that they can.
There was also, they were also talking about some of the programs about wait until you're married, abstinence until marriage, that they were saying that some of the programs were saying it was all the girl's fault, so if you did get pregnant, and that the guy had no control because of the way we were built differently, and that was kind
That's
of
another issue with the abstinence only until marriage programs, in that they don't provide medically accurate information. So a lot of them instill a sense of shame upon the women in those programs, and a sense of fear when it comes to sex. So a lot of times in abstinence only until marriage programs, they'll show slides of what an STD infection looks like. We don't show those slides in any of our programs, because when you show an image of a wart or a scar or something like that, you scare young people. And the most common reaction to seeing images like that is the youth will say, "I'm never going to have sex." Okay, well, if you've decided that you don't want to have sex now, that's fine. But the reality is that one day the vast majority of the population will have sex. So it's important to prepare those individuals for when they decide that they are ready, so that they're not in this mindset of, oh, I'm never going to have sex, so I don't need to worry about this. Because the reality is that eventually they likely will.
And come in here that was pregnant, and have to deal with a situation like that.
We really can't talk about specific instances of students because of the HIPAA, but I have dealt with a lot of teen pregnancy in my career because I worked labor and delivery for 20 years.
Okay.
So I've had lots of teen pregnancies. The youngest girl I'd ever delivered a baby on was 12 years old.
12 years old. Okay, and how was that experience for her? Was it
very frightening? I mean, it's very difficult to deal with adult kinds of responsibilities and adult kinds of situations when you're not really physically an adult. So.
Okay, and then any of the colleges that you worked with, girls that have came in that are pregnant and they're from out of state and they don't have the proper medical insurance that will cover everything. How do you deal with that? How do you go about?
Well, I mean, there are different resources that we can utilize to help them out. If they do have, everybody has to have some kind of insurance when they come here. And that's the theory. A lot of kids start out with insurance and then lose their insurance. Or maybe their insurance doesn't cover pregnancy like our student health insurance doesn't. So then we need to look at resources for students and what they can do and different things that they can utilize to help get them the care that they need.
Do you ever have males come in here for advice or asking you anything about?
I haven't, but I've only worked here for 6 months, so I haven't had any guys coming in talking about pregnancy or that kind of thing.
Is this the first college you worked
It
in?
is.
Okay. Do you think that colleges should have more, should have classes on sex or sex education, or do you think that students should be old enough to know what they're doing?
I don't think you can ever have too much learning because I think a lot of us live in kind of a Pollyanna kind of world where we think, oh, this can't happen to me. You know what I mean? I know, and in one part of our heads, we know that this happens. By the time they get to college, I think they for the most part, know that pregnancy can cause, sex can cause a pregnancy, but we don't really think it will ever happen to us. We think that, I'll be fine, or this will work, or that form of birth control. And I think people grow up with a lot of misconceptions, or maybe once they got the correct information, or maybe they haven't gotten the correct information, but they tend to go with the, what everybody says, and a lot of social norms or fairy tales or myths are out there, urban myths that people think that will work, and they really don't. So I think continued education and keeping it in everybody's mind, so that everybody's reminded, yeah, this is the reality, this can happen. It isn't just, if you don't think about it, it won't happen. But it's there, and it will.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
That's all?
Yep.
My name is David Hazard, and I'm 22 years old.
Have you ever taken a sex education course?
I have.
How old were you when you took the course?
I was about 17 years old in high school.
Do you think it was useful in teaching about safe sex?
I do.
Do you wish you could have learned anything else in the course?
In the course that I took, I learned a lot, so I feel confident in what I learned, and I really don't think there's anything else I really could have learned that I needed to know.
Do you believe it helped you in beginning your sex life?
It did. Maybe, it helped.
What age do you believe kids should start having sex?
I believe they should learn it as soon as they enter high school. That's when a lot of kids start. The sooner the better. The sooner that they learn, the safer they're going to be.
Yeah. Has your condom ever broke? If so, how did you react to the situation?
I've never had a condom break, so I wouldn't know.
Was the course successful? Has your partner ever had a pregnancy scare?
My partner has had a pregnancy scare.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 18 years old.
How did you react? And would you have kept the baby?
It was stressful. It's just a scary thought having a kid that early. It wasn't what we were really planning, but I did know what I needed to do, and yes, I would have kept the baby.
Do you believe that if the sex education course was taught differently, the situation would have been different?
Honestly, if I didn't take the course, it could have been way different. It would have been way more scary than it already was, and it just could have spun out of control.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
No problem.
Olivia Spencer, and I am 19.
Have you ever taken a sex education course?
Yeah, I did in high school.
Do you believe it was successful in teaching about safe sex?
It was successful at some parts, but a majority of it was just like, don't get pregnant, here's a condom.
Yeah. Do you believe it prepared you for the real life experience?
No. It's completely different from what they taught us in school.
Have you ever had a pregnancy scare? How was it? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I did with my boyfriend, and I was 16, and I was really scared because I thought I was going to have a baby because I was so young, and I didn't want to have a baby because I hate little kids. So, yeah.
Have you ever heard or visited a Planned Parenthood?
Yes.
What did you learn during your visit?
I didn't learn anything because I didn't visit for myself. I was with somebody who was there.
Do you think they are successful in teaching about safe sex?
No. I don't support Planned Parenthood.
How old were you when you had your pregnancy scare?
16.
Do you believe the course prepared you for this event?
No, not really, no.
How did you react to the scare?
Well, I was scared. I freaked out. I yelled at my boyfriend. And then I was like, well, if it's going to happen, then I have to step up and take care of the baby.
At what age do you believe children should start having sex?
Start having sex? I don't know. When you're at a point in your life where you're mature and you'll believe that you would be able to support not only yourself, but the baby.
Yeah. I got this. Do you think you would have kept the child if you were pregnant?
Yes.
Do you think the course should include other aspects or be changed in any way?
It should apply more to like real life situations. Like, yeah, that stupid show 16 and Pregnant, but that also applies to real life situations where girls in high school, they get pregnant, they don't initially know what to do about it, they're scared to tell their family. Of course, it didn't prepare you for that. It just told you about the reproductive organs and what happens when a baby grows and what you should do if you get pregnant, who you should talk to. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, Olivia.
You're welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
What's your name and age?
I'm Jada Davis, 19.
Have you ever taken a sex education course?
Yes, I have.
What age did you take the sex education course?
It's about 14 in 9th grade.
Do you think it was useful in teaching you about safe sex?
Somewhat.
Do you think it was informative in teaching sex to the lesbian and gay community?
No, because I feel like what they really do teach you is that it's proven that AIDS are not only like contracted to the gay community. That's the only thing I feel like they have in reference for the gay community. That's it.
What more did you expect to learn from the class that you took?
I feel like they could have went deeper, and they don't have to be so, like, I feel like they blind some aspects of sex because they feel like people can't take it or they're not mature enough to have to talk about it, but either way it should be told.
Have you ever heard of or been to a Planned Parenthood?
I haven't been to one, but yes, I have heard of it.
Do you know what their goals are?
I feel like they want to help with like protected sex and help you from like pregnancy and stuff like that.
Do you think they are successful in teaching about safe sex?
No, I don't really feel like they teach you about safe sex. I feel like they provide you with stuff for safe sex.
Do you feel that the course should be changed to include other aspects of safe sex or gay sex?
Yes, it should. I feel like they should be more blunt with the topic instead of keeping a closure to it just because they think people can't handle it.